ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पश्यताय देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौ भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So once again, thank you all for joining us for today's evening program. And let me just play my presentation here. I hope my presentation is visible now. So we are on the 5th episode of this Gita Essence series. However, before we start our discussion from the 5th topic, let me just quickly give a recap of what we discussed yesterday. So yesterday we had discussed from the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, wherein we discussed about transcendental knowledge, and that's actually the chapter name also. What is transcendental knowledge? Transcendental knowledge means three things. Who am I? Who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? What are his opulences and energies? And third, the relationship between the Supreme Lord and the living entity. So why this transcendental knowledge or spiritual knowledge is required, or what is the need for it? That was established in the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, wherein Arjuna asked a question, why we fail to continue with determination, why we get distracted. When we have made a choice to do something, but after a while we lose enthusiasm, particularly for good things. For bad things, for sinful things, somehow people are naturally inspired. In that case, in that particular, as a response to this question, Lord Shri Krishna says, Kama esh, Krodha esh, Rajoguna mahash. Rajoguna, like, this Kama, Krodha. So this is lust, which is the greatest enemy, Arjuna. And then Lord Shri Krishna explained how this enemy of lust can be defeated by cultivating transcendental knowledge. Because higher than the senses is the mind, and higher than the mind is intelligence. By cultivating spiritual knowledge, our intelligence becomes strong and purified, which in return controls the mind, and then mind controls the senses. Therefore, a person is able to deal with lust. Lust refers to all kind of desire for sense gratification. The desire to enjoy separate than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just to make it, give you a simple example, just like again the finger, where finger, or let's say the hand desires or wishes to enjoy independently and separately of the whole body. As I gave an example yesterday, where the hand collects the food but keeps the food in his hand, but does not feed to the mouth. And that is how the suffering happens. So that's what, for this reason, Lord Shri Krishna spoke about transcendental knowledge, where Lord Shri Krishna spoke about the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, why does he descends, and then the advantages of applying this spiritual knowledge, one gets freed from all kind of philosophical doubts, one gets freed from all kind of sinful reactions. But how do we understand this knowledge was the question raised by Arjuna. For that, Lord Shri Krishna said you have to perform sacrifice according to your position. You're a brahmachari, then engaging your senses in hearing, shravanam and kirtanam, and pathanam, reading of scriptures, is a sacrifice. For a grihastha, charity, feeding prasadam, contributing, making contribution to a spiritual cause. These are sacrifices for grihastha. Like this, different sacrifices were recommended and prescribed by Lord. And then Arjuna thought, my dear Lord, I totally agree with you. However, I still have a question. How do I understand what kind of sacrifice am I supposed to perform in a particular situation? And then Lord said, you need to accept a bona fide guru who can guide you and tell you what is the right thing at this particular time or phase of your life and what is the best course of action. Finally, Lord Shri Krishna, after describing the glories of transcendental knowledge in 4th chapter, he concludes. And in the concluding verse of the 4th chapter, Lord Shri Krishna says, hey Arjuna, by the weapon of this knowledge, you should destroy all the doubts which have arisen in your heart. Armed with yoga, rise and fight. So, interestingly, Lord Shri Krishna has spoken about the subject of transcendental knowledge and the importance of cultivating transcendental knowledge. But Lord Shri Krishna, in fact, told Arjuna, you should accept a bona fide guru. And the end of 4th chapter, Krishna again said, Arjuna, rise and fight, perform your duty. Once again, Arjuna is perplexed. What is Lord trying to tell me? Should I cultivate knowledge or should I perform my duty? In other words, this cultivation of knowledge, Arjuna is comparing it to the path of Jnana Yoga. He's thinking, for me to cultivate knowledge, I have to take renunciation, which is a prerequisite for the practitioner of a Jnana Yoga. However, Lord Shri Krishna is saying, by performing your duty, by engaging your senses as a service unto me, you will gradually cultivate knowledge by accepting a bona fide guru, because your work becomes a means of your liberation or your freedom. For example, in 4th chapter, Lord Shri Krishna spoke about 3 kinds of karmas. Vikarma, karma, akarma. Vikarma is sinful action, which leads to sinful reactions. Karma, pious action, which gives you pious results. Akarma refers to the activity performed as a service to the Lord, which do not give you pious or impious result. What it means, in other words, your vikarma, karma, impious and pious actions, both are impious because both are binding. What is the meaning of the word binding? Therefore, Krishna again tells in 5th chapter, Arjuna, perform your duties in such a way that you get liberated, not you get bound by the laws of this world. What does mean by binding or bound to the laws of the nature? Which means a person is forced to take birth again in the material world. And why we are forced to take birth again? Because we have to reap the results of our past actions. So a karma refers to an activity where you perform an activity, but you don't get any result. But the ultimate result of that is that you burn all your past reactions of your work, and that person goes back to Godhead, which means attains to the spiritual perfection, spiritual body, or goes back to Godhead. Therefore, Arjuna, being perplexed again, his heart again tormented by the desire to actually cultivate spiritual knowledge, actually to make an advancement on the spiritual path, is not able to reconcile how my fighting in the battlefield would actually help me attain a self-realization. In other words, for us, how being a housewife cooking in the kitchen, how being an IT professional, how being a student and studying in my school, or how be a musician or a sportsman performing my activities which I ought to be performed, how can I actually become a spiritualist? How can I actually become a transcendentalist? Is what Arjuna is having a doubt, which is once again raised in the 5th chapter, where Lord Shri Krishna, for once for all, would put a conclusion to this particular question. And this episode is titled as Inner Peace. Very, very important subject, wherein once who understands the subject matter of Karma Yoga would actually attain to inner peace. Why we are troubled? We all are troubled because of one thing. The thing that troubles us the most is the idea that I am the controller, proprietor, and enjoyer. Let me give you a very simple example. I'll be quoting this example multiple times through our session today, but let's begin with this. Imagine you are a cashier in a bank. On behalf of the bank, you actually collect all the money. But are you worried about the well-being of the money? In other words, about not the well-being, about the protection of the money? Yes or no? You count the money, you keep it, you stack it up, and then somebody else comes on behalf of the bank, collects all the money, puts it into the van, and takes it away. Half the way down the line, if the van gets, let's say, robbed, and all the money is stolen away, would you get disturbed or something? Probably not. Of course not, because the money did not belong to you. Imagine if it was your money and your idea, let's say you had deposited money, and that time in front of your eyes, your money was stolen. Before your money could have been deposited to the bank, you would have been heartbroken. So all the suffering that we undergo in this life is all because of this ideology that I am the controller, I am the proprietor, and I am the enjoyer. But it is not the truth. We'll establish that truth in today's discussion as we move forward. Before we proceed ahead, just let's open up our discussion with a little quick question. We talk about being a controller and a proprietor. Think about it. How much control do you have on your own body? How much control do we have on the functioning of our body? Does anyone know how many times you have blinked until the session has started? Do you know how many times you've already breathed in or you have exhaled carbon dioxide? Do you know how your heart is pumping, how your lungs are oxygenating, how your kidney is filtering? How many of us have a control on it? We don't have a control on something which is so close to us. And here we are living in a misconception to go out and control everything. And that is a major misconception. Let's see, we'll talk about it as the session proceeds. I hope I'm making a little sense. It's a little complicated, yet a very profound subject matter. This chapter is also titled as Karma Sannyas Yoga. And in this chapter, we're going to present it a little differently than what we had been doing previously to make it a little more simpler. There are three prominent themes or subject matter which have been discussed by Lord Shri Krishna. First, who is the doer? Who performs an action? Second, what is the vision of a spiritualist? And the third topic is the peace formula, how to actually become peaceful in our life. To begin with, let's start with an acronym for this chapter. The acronym is STEP, S-T-E-P, where S stands for stay in the world, from verse number 1 to verse number 12. So in other words, here, Lord Shri Krishna explains to Arjuna that how one should live his life instead, or to put it this way, here in this particular section or series of verses, Lord Shri Krishna explains that one should live his life in such a way that the actions performed by him should not bind him to the material world, which means that forces him to take birth again. Rather, our actions should become the cause of our liberation. We have already discussed about the subject matter of karma, vikarma in chapter 4. So here in this chapter, Lord Shri Krishna would further speak on the concept of akarma, which is also called as karma yoga. In essence, Lord Shri Krishna repeats that karma yoga is better than renunciation. And the same theme was discussed in the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, if you remember, where Lord Shri Krishna says, Yagna artha karmano nitra loko yam karma bandhana tadartham karma kanteya mukta sangha samachara, where Krishna defined karma yoga. And one who tries to take to the path of renunciation when he's actually not renounced, Krishna said, such a person is mithyachari or pretender. So work or renunciation, what is better? Krishna says karma yoga or work and devotion is better than renunciation. Why? Why Krishna is actually recommending to perform work in a spirit of detachment rather than taking to the path of renunciation? The reasons are as follows. First, Karma Yoga or work in devotion allows an individual to engage one's mind and senses appropriately. However, renunciation and the path of renunciation, one has to restrain his active mind and senses, which is very difficult because by nature, soul is active and thus soul has to be engaged, which means the body has to be engaged. In Jnana Yoga, we are forced to restrain our mind and senses, which becomes very difficult. Second, the work and devotion purifies the heart because the work is done as a service to the Lord. However, the path of renunciation, which is Jnana Yoga, is a stopgap solution, does not necessarily purify because you're restraining your senses. You're not engaging them positively. So those senses are not being purified. Third, joyful process because senses are engaged. You don't feel frustrated. You want to eat delicious prasadam, you offer actually Lord Shri Krishna, you honor it. You get a chance to eat. For example, few Kumbh Melas before, maybe a decade before or sometime around that, one very newly connected German, native German, was visiting us, ISKCON temple, who recently got connected with our devotees back in Germany. And he had heard about Kumbh Mela, so he thought he'll go with the ISKCON devotees to attend Kumbh Mela. And ISKCON also, like many other akhadas, have a huge pandal in the Kumbh Mela. And so he decided to stay there. So when the neighboring akhadas of the camp saw that ISKCON has a Western, devotee, so they all thought, why don't we invite him to our camp? Because he would become an attraction for the tourist. People will come to see him. Really a Westerner, have taken to a spiritual path. So when he was walking around, one of the other, the neighboring camp invited him. Why don't you please come and stay with us, spend some time? We'll also tell you about the path of spirituality. We'll also introduce you to our guru who's very great and like that. So this boy, who was a young boy, he thought, okay, let me just explore. Let me find out what's going on. And he decided to stay with them for 3 days. After one day, he became frustrated. And he packed his bag and he was about to leave. The people from that camp, the yogis of the camp, asked him, what happened? Why are you leaving? You had promised to live with us for 3 days. And this man said, the young man said, I am fed up eating khichdi 3 times a day. ISKCON camp is so nice. Every afternoon they feed gulab jamun. And you feed me khichdi, I'm going. At least I'm happy eating what I get there. So the point here is, our senses are engaged positively, wherein the path of renunciation is very difficult because you have to perform severe tapasya, regulate your senses and whatnot. Very difficult, actually. Fourth, complete renunciation, because in third chapter, Lord Shri Krishna already established renunciation is not of the work, renunciation of the spirit to enjoy the results of the work. In Karma Yoga, the devotee gives the result of his work in the service of the Lord. Therefore, that is a perfect renunciation in comparison to the renunciation offered by a jnani. That is incomplete, because although he might have taken a path of renunciation, even the yogis and the renunciates are attached to their kopins. What to speak about any other positions? So it's not that easy to give up. Finally, you quickly attain the supreme, whereas in the path of jnana, it takes many births. Why it takes many births? Because in Jnana Yoga, you're searching for the absolute truth. In a Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, by the mercy of bona fide Guru, you already know who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, living a life becomes very simple. In essence, if we renounce our activities before our mind and senses are purified, or in other words, our heart is clean, we'll be forced to act, and we might end up acting sinfully. Therefore, it is very important to engage our senses according to a level of maturity. Otherwise, we might end up committing a sinful activity. Therefore, the path of Karma Yoga is safe, and the path of renunciation is very, very difficult and risky also. So in essence, Lord Shri Krishna establishes through this series of verses, the path of Karma Yoga is more practical and more feasible than the path of renunciation. Arjuna thought about it. Arjuna nodded his head. Finally, he's getting the message now. But he asked the Lord, my dear Lord, how to act in Karma Yoga. What does it mean that I'm performing Karma Yoga? How do we do so? So Lord Shri Krishna would answer this, very important. We are living in a time we are living in the time or in the world which is filled with temptations and distractions. And at this point of time, not to get caught up with the idea of aham mamiti, me and mine, the control of the proprietor and enjoyship is very, very difficult. It seems easy to give up everything and go to the forest. At least I will not be disturbed. But to be in the world, to be in the society, and to be with the people and yet practice the path of spirituality seems very, very difficult. Therefore, asks, what does it mean? How one acts in Karma Yoga? Or how can we act in Karma Yoga? So Krishna answers a very important point here. From 7th verse to 12th verse of 5th chapter, Krishna says what it means. First of all, to be able to perform Karma Yoga, one has to regulate one's mind and senses. We have to live a regulated life. Sense gratification or sense engagement is not denied, but has to be regulated. You want to eat vegetarian diet. Higher than that, better than that, eat Krishna Prasadam. You want to sing and dance? Sing the glories of the Lord. Chant the glories of the Lord. Dance in the kirtans of the Lord. You want to see something beautiful? See the beautiful form of the Lord. You want to smell something fragrant? Then smell the incense which is offered to the Lord. Like that, a devotee, a person can engage all his senses in the service of the Lord. That is the first point. And that is only possible when we stay in the association of devotees. Staying away or alone is not possible in today's day and time. Second, one should act without attachment, no desire for results. Act without attachment, we'll speak about it more as the session continues. We have discussed about it before also. Attachment of what? What actually belongs to us? The body with which we are so attached is also a gift of the Lord. Neither we know how we got it, nor we would know how this body will be taken away from us. And between these two states of birth and death, we are like a caretaker. We are supposed to take care of the body to perform the desired functions of the body. However, we become so absorbed in the bodily consciousness where we misunderstand ourselves to be the body. So therefore, we need to understand what belongs to us. The results of our work, does it really belong to us? So how do we understand the subject matter? For that, we have to cultivate transcendental knowledge. Regular hearing of the message of Bhagavad Gita helps us to remain detached. Third, act with body, mind, and senses only for the purpose of purification. In other words, such a person is always conscious of his life's goal, and that is self-realization. To gain freedom from suffering, which arises from material desire. When a person is very clear with the goal, then such a person can perform in this consciousness, the consciousness of whatever I do is for the purpose of purifying my heart or not entangling it. So that is a point here which is being explained now. And what is the result of one who acts in this understanding of Karma Yoga? Lord Shri Krishna says, one who performs Karma Yoga, such a person is unaffected by sinful action. What do you mean by sinful action? For an example, let's say you're an IT programmer, you're a computer engineer, you're writing a code which is beyond your knowledge or without your knowledge has been utilized in a machine which unfortunately been used in the slaughterhouse to kill animals, an automatic machine. Now you don't know where your piece of code is being utilized. So what it means when you perform Karma Yoga, which means if you use the results, which means in this case, your earnings, your wealth, if you use the portion of your earning or wealth in the service of the Lord, help in prasadam distribution, building temple, or promoting educational programs to support the educational programs, then whatever sinful reaction we incurred because of our work, that all sinful reaction will get nullified because we have utilized the result of our actions in the service of the Lord. That is how Krishna says here, the performer is unaffected by sinful action. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to perform a sinful action. This refers to unknowingly perform sinful action. Even whatever profession we are today, some amount of sin is definitely incurred in that. And that sin sits on the head and builds up in the form of diseases, mental anxieties, the fight in the family and whatnot. And that is the reason, because people do not know how to serve, the importance of rendering service today. Unlike before, where everyone would go to temple and do some contribution, now people have no clue of it. Therefore, despite having all the wealth, people are more frustrated or suffering because they don't know how to get rid of sinful reactions. Second, Krishna says such a person becomes dear to everyone, and is everyone dear to him, because he's no one's competitor, and he's not competing with anyone else, because he's not working for the sake of results. He's working for the sake of purifying his heart. And finally, such a person attains peace. No anxiety over result. What do you mean by no anxiety over result? Once again, the example of a cashier, as I gave you in the beginning. Cashier is responsible for counting the money, but is not responsible for the safety of the money. So he counts the money on the behalf of the bank, but he's not in anxiety about the protection of the money, because it doesn't belong to him. That's the point is being made here. So Lord Shri Krishna, in other words, analogy is given, just as a lotus flower, although it blooms in a lake, yet it remains unaffected by the water. Similarly, one can stay in this world, continue performing his activities, and remain aloof from the world. In essence, one who controls his mind and senses, works with detachment as a service to Lord, and acts for purification, performs karma yoga. For such a person, his work becomes worship. For most people, it is immature or detrimental to renounce or to sever one's ties with the worldly relationships and duties in pursuance of spiritual life. Therefore, Lord Shri Krishna in verse number 1 to 12 of his chapter again emphasizes the most practical way for self-awareness or self-awakening is karma yoga. Arjuna was quite convinced now, and then he pondered, but how can I be detached from actions which are performed by me? So here's a poll for all of you. How many of you agree? It is easy to speak about detachment than to practice detachment, isn't it? For example, if your neighbor's son or daughter scores less mark, it is very easy to tell the parent of the child, oh, don't be angry on his child. He really tried his best. But what about when your own child scores less, and don't you become angry? So what I meant to say is, it's easy to speak about detachment, but to practice is not always that easy. So let's take a look at it, or what happens now. So why it is difficult to be detached from the results of work? Because our experiences of the world reaffirms, I am the doer. If I am the doer, I deserve to enjoy the results of my action. So now Lord Shri Krishna will debunk this false idea from text number 13 to text number 16. So almost 80% audience says yes, it's difficult. All right, noted. So generally people think anything good happens, then they are the cause. Anything bad happens, then everyone else is the cause. So there's a serious misunderstanding about who is the performer. In third chapter, Krishna says, Prakriti kriyamanani guna karmani sarvasha ahankara vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. Karta aham iti manyate. The living entity thinks karta aham, I am the performer. However, who performs action? Prakriti kriyamanani. It is the material nature that performs. a very profound subject matter. Please pay attention to this. Let's take a look what it means by that. So Lord Shri Krishna speaks about it, knowledge of the three doers. In essence, what it means is whatever action we perform, there is not single performer. In fact, there are three performers or doers to it. So who is the performer? So one is I, definitely we are a performer. And who are the other two performers? Lord Shri Krishna talks about it. Krishna says in 14th verse, a living entity thinks that he is a complete doer of his actions, but he is not. He is simply a witness of his activities. He is not the complete doer. Yes, he is a partial doer, but not the complete doer. I know some of you will be thinking, great, now I can do whatever I want. If in case I'm caught doing anything wrong, I can go and tell the judge, please refer the 5th chapter, 14th verse. Krishna declared, I am not the doer, which means I have not done anything. So don't punish me. That is not the meaning of it. So who is responsible for the action? If I am not the complete doer, then who is responsible? Am I responsible? Well, Lord Shri Krishna says, yes, you are only responsible. What it means? Lord is not responsible, although Lord is also one of the performer. In fact, Krishna says, man proposes, God disposes. What it means, let me tell you a little graphically. What it means is, first of all, there are three doers: a living entity, supreme personality, and the material nature, which provides all the ingredients. So what the role of a living entity is? Only to desire. Our only capacity is to desire. We can only do desire. Now you may say, how is it possible? I'll explain it to you. Pay attention to it. Using the free will given to a living entity, he can desire whatever he wants to desire. Then those desires are heard by the Paramatma residing in the heart, which is called as super soul, who either sanctions or rejects the desire. On what basis? There has to be some basis. Yes. Krishna has created a system of law of karma. As you perform, so you get a reaction for it. Just like, you have an account in a bank. So you are building up your bank balance and you want to purchase a car, let's say for 10 lakh rupees. If your savings account or whatever checking account only has a balance of 5 lakh rupees, the bank manager will not sanction because you don't have sufficient funds. But the moment you get 11 lakhs or 10 lakh rupees in your account, the bank manager will sanction you to go and purchase a car because now you have enough funds, or in other words, to give you a loan and whatnot. So super soul sanctions, which means without the sanction of the Lord, nothing can happen. And super soul sanctions based on the karmic credit. And then when super soul sanctions, then super soul directs the material nature to create the facility and opportunity and situation and environment around the living entity wherein the desire can be fulfilled. Again, let's take a case of somebody is having a very strong desire to purchase a car, but he's short of 2 lakh rupees despite all his hard work and whatnot. But now, because of his karmic account in this particular year, Lord sanctions the desire. Now, how the material nature would fulfill? The situation would be created where either the person gets a loan, interest-free loan, or else he gets a lottery, or else he gets a promotion, or finally he's able to crack a new job which gives him a higher package. So these are not random events, and these all things are happening just to fulfill our desires. So that is a point here: carry out the actions to suit the desires. So let's do a little reflective exercise to understand the subject. If I am not the doer, then why not this way? If I am the doer, which means I'm also, my part of job is to desire, then why not all my desires are fulfilled? The answer is simple as we discussed. It depends on the sanction of the Lord. Now, some of you may have a doubt. If it depends on the sanction of the Lord, does it mean a thief who wanted to rob, ultimately his desire must be sanctioned by the Lord? Yes or no? Yes, that is correct. And that is also based on his karmic account. But does it mean the Lord is unintelligent to encourage such kind of sinful activities? No, not at all. Lord Shri Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, later on he makes a statement, Samoham sarva bhuteshu namid dveshti astina priya. Hey Arjuna, I am equal to all living entities. Nobody is dear to me, neither I hate any living entity. Just like a sun, the sunshine falls in the house of a saint, falls in the house of a demon, falls in a neat and clean place, falls in a filthy place. Also, just like the sunlight does not discriminate, so does the system of the Lord does not discriminate, or the Lord does not discriminate. However, to put a check and balance system, Lord has created a system that is called as law of karma. Whatever action you performed, that action ultimately is being performed because you had a desire. Let me ask a simple question to all of you. All of you, those of you who are attending the session today evening, think about it. Was there a desire responsible for it? Did you desire to attend it? Yes or no? Or did our host, Mother Medhavni, or the admin dragged you to come on Zoom or YouTube, force you to come on Zoom or YouTube? Think about it. Let's say some time ago you did some act of charity. You did some food distribution, or you gave some money to beggar, or you contributed toward building Krishna's temple, whatnot. Was there a desire responsible for it? You had a desire to do it? Yes or no? Think about it. Ultimately, it all begins with the desire. And therefore, to govern this cycle or the system of desires, action and reaction, therefore, Lord has created the system of karma. The kind of action you perform, you get a reaction for it, because ultimately it was your desire to do so. So how are these desires cultivated now? These desires are cultivated according to the kind of association. Therefore, we so much speak on the subject matter of taking association of sadhus or saintly people. So let us a little bit reflect more on the subject matter of how does this law of karma functions. So who am I? Spirit soul. The soul desires. Where am I? In the material world. What situation I'm in? The living entity is put into a material body. What am I bound by? We'll be discussing later on, but we have already discussed in the previous series. We are bound by three modes of material nature. What is controlling me? Kala, time. And who is watching me? Paramatma. So like this, the living entity only has the job or a function of desiring. Paramatma acts as a judge, also as a sanctioning authority. And who is the executor? Is the material nature. It is a material nature by which we have got this body, mind, and intelligence. These are the gifts of the material nature. So how does it work? Let's take a look. Imagine you walk into a restaurant and a waiter walks to you, and waiter asks you, sir, what would you like to eat? And you tell him, for starter, I would like to have a tomato soup, for a main course, masala dosa, and for a dessert, gulab jamun. You give an order. You desired, yes or no? You wanted to eat it. So there is a desire for it. You expressed your desire. And then imagine, these items are being served in the hotel. So let's say these are being served in the hotel. The waiter goes to the cook, informs the cook. Cook says, okay, we can serve this item. And after half an hour or 15 minutes, the waiter serves you the item. You eat it. You perform the action. After performing the action, now the waiter goes and informs about what you have eaten to the cashier. Now the cashier would give you the bill. And what is that bill? Is a reaction of your action, which means, to make it easy, here the customer is represented by a living entity, whereas the waiter or the cook who executed your desire was material nature, and the cashier is like the Paramatma who sanctioned it, who facilitated it, and who directed the material nature. Let's take a look more graphically now. What is the relationship between these three doers? Jiva desires. Ishvara, which is Paramatma, hears the desire, and based on karmic account credit, either he sanctions or rejects. So let's take a case where your desire is sanctioned. Then Ishvara orders Prakriti to fulfill the desire of a jiva, and then Prakriti performs an action where it creates a situation, environment where your desire can be fulfilled. So whatever things which were acting as a hindrance in fulfillment of your desire, suddenly they all get removed and your desire is fulfilled. Great. So here, jiva becomes temporarily happy because the desire is fulfilled, but desire is not satisfied because ye dil mange more. Once your one desire is over, we want or we cultivate another desire. How many of you agree with this? Is there anyone whose all desires are fulfilled? Or whenever you get something, then suddenly there is another desire that pops up and now you're chasing after it. So even if your desire is fulfilled, you're only relieved temporarily. That's the point. But think about it. What happens when your desire is not fulfilled? Jiva desires, Paramatma hears it, Paramatma checks with your karmic bank balance and says, nothing doing. You're not qualified. And therefore, no instruction is given to Prakriti to fulfill your desire. What happens? You feel rejected and dejected. Jiva becomes frustrated, hopeless, etc. So you become hopeless when your desire is fulfilled, and you're neither too happy when your desire is fulfilled because you're constantly chasing after the desires. So that is the whole subject matter of three doers. Jiva desires, Ishvara sanction, Prakriti executes. So if somebody asks a question to you, is Supreme Lord, I believe we have a poll here for all of you, is Supreme Lord responsible for all our sufferings and pleasure now? Based on what we have discussed, what do you think now? Is Supreme Lord responsible? Who desired it is the question now. And based on the desires that we have, our actions or our, we perform an action ultimately, and for that we get a reaction. So people ask, why do bad things happen to good people or good things to bad people? It is all happening under the purview of law of karma. So glad to see. Looks like many of you have got it correct. Some of you, 6% of you are saying, Lord to be blamed. Why did he fulfill my desire? He should not have fulfilled my desire. But as I said, Krishna himself says he's neutral. He's unbiased. So moving ahead in our discussion. So now question comes, how can we purify our desires? We have already cultivated so many desires. How can we purify our desires? So the answer is given as follows. How to purify the desires? The scripture says, Cheto darpanam marjanam bhava mahadavagni nirvapanam shreya kairava chandrika vitaranam vidyavadhu jivanam. And it goes on. The gist of this verse is, chanting of Hare Krishna is the easiest means to purify our heart. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and for millions of lifetimes. That dust refers to all kind of material desires. And how can we purify it? By the transcendental process of chanting of the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Just like when a doctor gives you a prescription, you take a medicine, you don't know how medicine is working on your body and building up your immunity and fighting with the virus. So we may not understand how the chanting of Hare Krishna actually purifies our heart, but that's a prescription given by the sages as a self-realized souls. We should follow the prescription for our own good. To summarize, Krishna explains that there are three doers in any activity: Jivatma, Super Soul, and material nature. What to speak of controlling the results of our activities? We are barely in control of even the physical and mental tools with which we perform these activities. And third, the individual soul can only desire. And that desire is when sanctioned by the Lord, then the ability to fulfill that desire is provided by the material nature. Just like the parents holds the finger or the hand of a young child and helps him walk, similarly, for all our desires, at all times, we are dependent on the mercy and the grace of the Lord. The moment the parents take their hand off, the child collapses. Our situation in the material world is like that of a child who is always dependent on the mercy of the Lord. So Arjuna thought about it. Arjuna thought, my dear Lord, how does a person in knowledge acts who understands that he is not the doer? Super soul, material nature, there are three doers. So how does such a person acts? And Lord Shri Krishna says, this brings us to the third section of fifth chapter, where E stands for equal vision. The acronym STEP, we're on the third, equal vision, from verse number 18 to 26. And in this, Krishna talks about what is the vision of a spiritualist, one who knows there is a supreme Lord, and material nature and living entity both are energies of the Lord. Krishna says, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini Suni Chaivasa Pakecha Pandita Samadarshina. The humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, sees with equal vision a learned, gentle Brahmana, a cow, elephant, dog, and a dog eater altogether. So in this way, in other words, Lord Shri Krishna explains, actually only a true spiritualist can harmonize or can find unity in diversity. Diversity which exists on the bodily level. And in this way, only a spiritualist can offer utmost respect to every living entities. Different bodies with different qualities are produced according to one's past karmic activities. However, beneath all these different kind of bodies, the living entity, which is Jivatma or spirit, is same in spiritual quality. Thus, the spiritualist is not only free of racism, nationalism, ageism, and sexism, but is also free of the concept of speciesism. They don't even discriminate between species. Then Arjuna thought, my dear Lord, one who does not follow spiritual life is indeed foolish, who falsely makes so much distinctions and divides a society based on the artificial identification. He spoils her life. Now Krishna said, yes, Arjuna, such a person who does not take to spiritual life, they only suffer in this world and also in the next. And Krishna explains, Yehi samsvarshaja bhoga dukha yoniya evate adi antavanta kanteya nateshu ramate buddha. Yehi samsvarshaja bhoga dukha yoni. So all our sensual pleasures, they give birth to suffering. Dukha yoni evate. Yoni, womb, they only give birth to dukha. Because why? Because all sensual pleasures or happiness, adi has a beginning, antavanta has an end. Therefore, ramate buddha, ramate is enjoy. Buddha means intelligent. Nateshu ramate buddha, intelligent person does not relish or enjoy in this temporary sensual pleasures. To give you a simple example, again, let's take a case of Rasgulla. I guess I quoted this yesterday also. Imagine Rasgulla is your favorite sweet, or whatever is your favorite sweet. And you sit down for dinner, and let's say I serve you your favorite sweet. How many of you would be excited to eat your favorite sweet? Say yes, raise your hand, or maybe say yes on the group, wherever you are. So imagine I'm serving you your favorite sweet. When you get a one serving of it, you'll be definitely very happy. Probably you'll become very grateful to me if I serve you one more serving, give you another serving. What if I gave you 4 more servings of it? Now you will slowly begin to feel like, okay, this is enough. What if I feed you 10 gulab jamuns or 10 rasgullas? Now, gradually, earlier when you were happy, now you're becoming a little disgusting. What if I give you 20 of gulab jamuns and I feed it to your mouth? You have to eat it. Probably you will vomit. Adi anta vanta kantya has a beginning, has an end. And that is the point about it. Even if I don't do that, even if you got your gulab jamun, next day when you wake up, again you will desire, isn't it? And that is our reason Lord Shri Krishna says, Arjuna, these are not permanent. These all are temporary and they cannot give you eternal happiness. So let me explain you what is the psychology of material happiness. Something very interesting to understand. How does this whole material happiness functions? Actually, it is not a reality. It is just a imagination. We imagine happiness. I'll give you a simple example. Let's take a look. When we see a sense object, our mind becomes agitated and excited. Our mind begins to imagine happiness, which is simply the intense expectation of a satisfaction that never comes, that never exists. For example, imagine your manager calls you in his or her office and tells you with a big smile on his face, I have a great news for you. And he said, what's that news, sir? I have got an American visa sanctioned for you. American visa sanctioned for you. How many of you think you'll feel excited about it? Suddenly your mind will begin to imagine all kinds of different happiness. Right and then and there, whatever you have heard about America, there is a great Niagara Falls, there is a Hollywood city, there is that, what is that, Tom and Jerry Park? Disney World, not the Tom and Jerry Park, Disney World. Disney World, or let's say the Las Vegas and whatnot. Then and there, you'll make a tour of America. Oh, great. When I go to America, I'll go to Niagara Falls, I'll go this and that. He has given you a H-1B visa, work visa, not a vacation visa. You're not going for a vacation. But our mind is not thinking about the work I have to do there. Yes or no? Our mind is constantly imagining, I'm going to enjoy my life. I'm going to have such a great time. I'm going to earn a lot of money. I'm going to do this. I'm going to buy a Ferrari, whatnot. Whatever you saw in the Hollywood movies is running through your mind, thinking that I'm going to enjoy my life. I'll have many girlfriends and whatnot. Those are side subject matter, but that's what young man also thinks about it. But actually, never a reality. It may not happen also. That is the point here. We just think about it, imagine. Therefore, one remains perpetually frustrated in material existence. And the more one tries to enjoy, the more one's frustration increases. And that is the point about it. When a person actually ends up America, then he understands, oh my goodness, I have to clean the house. I have to buy the vegetable. I have to cook for myself. I have to wash my own clothes because putting the clothes in a dryer is very expensive. One t-shirt for $1. Probably in few dollars, you'll purchase a new piece of cloth only. There you have to cut your own hairs. I have gone through it. I'm sharing my I'm sharing a reality. I went through it. For 2 years, I did not go for a salon to get my hair cut. Why? For the first time when I went to salon, that lady charged me $15. And in the beginning days, you know, when you go in the beginning days to America, there is a strong nature of translating everything into Indian currency. So I translated that $15 in Indian currency was, in those days, 600 rupees. And I was like, 600 rupees to saal ka bhi kharcha nahi tha. And the single sitting, she has charged me $15. For next 2 to 3 years, I didn't go. And that time I had a long hairs, whatnot. Anyways, that's the point. That's the psychology of mental happiness. So Arjuna began to think. He thought, Lord, I totally agree with you. Sense gratification is certainly painful. Adi anta vanta kantaya. It is difficult to acquire, then it is more painful after we have, as we long for more. First of all, we have to work very hard to acquire it. And then we have it, we suffer more because now we long for more. Please tell me the way to attain happiness, how to live happily and peacefully in this life, how to find true happiness. And that brings us to the last and the final section of the 5th chapter, where Lord Shri Krishna talks about peace formula. We come to this world with nothing, and we leave this world with nothing. Yes or no? All of you came without bank balance, without clothes, or any of you were wearing pepper jeans and had a tie on your collar when you were born. Nothing of it. We came empty handed, literally. Steve Jobs said, we came naked and we go naked. And we leave with nothing. In the interim between the birth and death, our claims to proprietorship and attachments to various objects create fear, insecurity, and conflict of interest. Change is a constant theme of this world. Our relationships are changing, our environment is changing, our possessions are changing, and our desires are also changing. To the extent that we develop a sense of detachment, understanding Supreme Lord to be the ultimate controller, proprietor, and enjoyer, and ourself as simply a caretaker, to that extent, a person will experience peace in his or her life. Interestingly, it is the inner peace that brings about the global peace. A community of individuals free from attachment and the hatred for each other. And I believe this is the need of the hour today, where people understand the science of cultivating inner peace. And it all depends with understanding I am not the proprietor, I am the caretaker. Therefore, Krishna says, in the last verse of the 5th chapter, Bhoktaram yagna tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridam sarvabhutanam jnanatvamam shanti mrachati. Bhoktaram yagna tapasam, Krishna says, I am the Bhoktaram, the enjoyer of all the austerities and sacrifices being performed, which means he is the actual proprietor, enjoyer of all the actions that we perform. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram means he is the supreme, or he is the presiding deity, or the proprietor of all the planets and demigods. No one is greater than him. Greater than the greatest demigod is the Supreme Lord. Think about it. Who is the cause of the earth, water, fire, air, ether? Who creates the rain clouds? Who in the summer season drops the water and that turns into a river, and that is what gives us the drinking water. There is a 70% of this earth covered with ocean water, but that is not drinkable. Who purifies the salty ocean water and turns into a drinking water? Who created the process of evaporation, turning into a rain cloud and then giving us a water? It's a summer season. I believe all of you probably would be relishing mangoes. Think about it. Why a tree has to produce a fruit which he cannot relish, which he cannot eat? And what a creation within a peel, such a juicy and delicious fruit. And why there is a peel is also a reason. That's not random. To protect the juicy fruit which is inside. Otherwise, that will be eaten by all kinds of insects and whatnot. So you have this kind of an incredible food which is given to us in the nature. We have the rain clouds, we have an oxygen to breathe, we have a sunlight, then we have a moonlight which is responsible for all the taste in the food that we eat. It's all the nature, it's all the gift of the Lord, who is the actual controller, proprietor, enjoyer. We as a humans who are supposed to be caretaker actually have become a destroyer and competitor of the Lord. Therefore, there is utter chaos in the society, in the world, everywhere. Either the people are fighting over a small patch of land that is called Jerusalem, a fight ongoing between Israel and Palestine, or about a certain portion of land on the Himalaya, which is literally a no man's land. People are trying to usurp that land, and a conflict happening between India and China, or conflict happening any other part of the world. Everyone, because have trying to take a role of the Lord, and everyone is trying to fulfill their greed, has given rise to such a fierce competition, wherein everyone is trying to become the boss of the boss. And that's the reason nobody is happy. So it is the inner peace which paves the way for global peace. And this is the peace formula where we understand the supreme authority of the Supreme Lord, where we understand he is actually the proprietor and he is the one who awards us the result. And not only that, Suhidam Sarva Bhutana, he is a true well-wisher of all living entities. If not, if you love mangoes, for the sake of that delicious mango, please offer your gratitude to that person who gave you the mango. Who ultimately gave you the mango is the Supreme Lord, not the farmer. Of course, not the DMart. Please don't say, thank you, DMart, for giving me mangoes. Not like that. And that's the point here. So to the degree we realize this particular verse, which we just discussed, to that degree we cultivate inner peace and happiness. With that, we come to the conclusion on our today's topic of inner peace from the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Shri Krishna advises Arjuna to stay in the world, but not to be in the world or become of the world. In other words, perform your duties in such a way that you don't get entangled by the world. Rather, your work liberates you. That is the idea of the first section. And then Arjuna thought, my dear Lord, how can I not be attached to my results of my work? Krishna says, because you're not the doer. There are three doers: soul, super soul, and material nature. The jurisdiction of a living entity is only to desire. Therefore, it is Paramatma who sanctions or rejects based on our karmic account. Arjuna agrees. Arjuna said, my dear Lord, when you understand the concept of three doers, how does he act? Krishna says, he is a man of unequal vision, because in every living entity, beyond these diversities, he sees a spiritual spark, which is same in quality. And finally, Arjuna agrees, my dear Lord, is definitely those who do not take to spiritual culture, they certainly suffer. Krishna says, yes, material happiness is temporary and painful. And then Arjuna asks, my dear Lord, so how can we achieve peace? Krishna says, accept the authority of the Supreme Lord. Understand you are a caretaker. You are a caretaker of the body, not the owner of the body. If you live your life in this way, then you would have attained inner peace. With this, we come to the conclusion. Just like yesterday, I had asked a question to all of you before you start making inquiries. Here, I have a question for all of you. And if in case any one of you would like to answer, I will request our host to give you the permission. And those who are on YouTube, they want to type in, they can type in. How would you respond to your friend if he tells you, what is wrong with enjoying yourself? God put us here to be happy. In other words, God has sent us to this world to enjoy life. So the question is, did God send us, or did we came to this world because of our own karmic reactions? So what would be answer according to you? I've given you enough hint. Anyone would like to give an attempt? What's an answer for this? If somebody challenges you, what's the problem? There is only one life. Enjoy to the fullest. Even if God exists, after all, he sent us to this world to enjoy life. What is the correct answer for this? So Vishnu Priya, I see the hand is up. Please go ahead. I have unmuted you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu,
The speaker is switched off. Just hold on. Speaker is off here. Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Vishnu Priya ji. Yes. Hare Krishna.
We came here due to our karmic reaction.
Correct. So that's the point we have to discuss. Yes. It is not God who has put us in this world, and we are here in this world to purify. We discussed yesterday, right? Krishna has created a system of eternal education. This universe is a material university where we are supposed to understand our relationship with the Supreme Lord. Who are we and who is Supreme Lord? We discussed that yesterday. Thank you. So, second question. You only became a Krishna devotee. This is a challenge to you. You only became a Krishna devotee because you were frustrated in your attempts to be happy in this world. Don't tell me that I'm suffering. Come with me. I will show you what is happiness. I'll teach you how to enjoy life. You don't know how to enjoy life. I'll tell you how to party harder and you can enjoy your senses. And on top of it, you're telling me I'm suffering. I am not suffering. I'm enjoying my life. What would be an answer to this person?
Sachin ji, you can unmute yourself and answer.
Krishna Dandavat Pranam Prabhuji. Basically,
Hari.
Prabhuji, what I would like to tell to this particular person is that whatever you are thinking as enjoyment is temporary. This world is dukkhalayam ashashvatam. So whatever you feel that you are enjoying is temporary in nature. You will feel fulfilled right now, but after a moment you will feel that it is not sufficient. You will try to go to the higher level, and then again you will start with the same thing again and again. So it's not permanent, and it's going to be a repeated birth and death that you would be suffering if you continue like this. So your real identity has to be identified.
Correct. Just like people who take to alcohol, they drink, and next morning they puke, right? They vomit out. And that is a cycle of their happiness. And then again, the evening comes, again they drink, thinking that today I would have a better day than yesterday. And next morning, again, they puke. So that's the whole idea of, Adi Antavanta Kante. All right, great. So just want to quickly check if we are on the same page, we have understood something here. So with that, we conclude for our today's discussion. Thank you so much for all joining in. Back to the host, if there are any questions, we can take to some questions or comments by our audience. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for a very interesting session. Yes, we got the peace formula, which is understanding that the Supreme Lord is the supreme controller, enjoyer, and proprietor of everything. And you beautifully said that stay in the world, but not become of the world. Thank you, Prabhuji. So I hope all of you enjoyed attending today's session and got the peace formula. So a quick 2 announcements before we start the Q&A. First is a gentle reminder to register at the Evolve Pune website, wherein we've posted the YouTube links and the video lectures, as well as the quizzes are posted, so you could attempt the quiz. The chapter 1 winners have also got announced. And we have as high as 80 participants who have joined in the quiz. So we still have it open for those of you all who would like to attempt the quizzes. So please go ahead and attempt it even now. You can do it. And in case you prepared any notes, key points of the sessions. So we've received from one participant, which we've shared in the groups. So kindly share it with your group admin. Would be happy to post it in all the groups for everybody's quick reference. Okay, so now starting with the question answer session, I'd request the Zoom participants to raise your hand. I can see Jagtap Mahesh Prabhuji's hand up. So others also please raise your hand if you have a question. The first question which we're taking from YouTube is, if renunciation is a hard way, why Krishna is telling about Dhyana Yoga in chapter 6? Okay, so I think we should wait for this question. We'll ask this to Prabhuji tomorrow. So going to the next question.
I can still answer in a one line.
Okay, sorry, Prabhuji. Yeah.
So it's a relevant question because connected with what we're discussing now, and that's what we're going to talk tomorrow. Just to tell you, to really appreciate knowledge, sometimes we also need to know, or in other words, I should say, to really appreciate good things, we also sometimes need to know about bad things, isn't it? Then we actually understand the value of the good thing. So here, Krishna, we're going to speak about the Ashtang Yoga process in the chapter 6. Oh, we didn't have our poster for tomorrow's session. I forgot. Okay, anyways, so the tomorrow's session is the art of meditation. I forgot to add it. Anyways, so Lord Shri Krishna talks about it just to help us understand what is that process. And wherein Arjuna, after hearing it, would say, my dear Lord, it is impossible. And therefore Krishna says, Arjuna, I understand and I agree. I just wanted you to be convinced. I wanted you to know fully what is that path, so that you prematurely don't take it thinking that I can do it and later on you regret. So therefore, for those of us who think Ashtang Yoga, Jnana Yoga Marg is good, is great, I can take it. So Lord Shri Krishna elaborates in detail. So we understand that it is not possible, rather impossible. We should do what we can do, what is prescribed in Bhagavad Gita, that is Bhakti Yoga. So for the sake of comparison and to give us a clear picture about what is the best path, therefore Lord Shri Krishna speaks about it. Hare Krishna. Yes, Madhu, we can continue. You're muted now.
Okay, sorry. All right. So now we have Jagtap Mahesh Prabhuji's hand up. So Prabhuji, can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
हरिबोल प्रभु जी.
Yes, Jagtap
हरे
ji.
कृष्ण. प्रभु जी, हमें मटेरियल वर्ल्ड में बर्थ लेना चाहिए, ऐसा कब डिसाइड किया जाता?
Sorry, I missed it. Can you say that again?
हमें मटेरियल वर्ल्ड में बर्थ लेना है, ये भगवान कब डिसाइड करते हैं?
भगवान के डिसाइड करने का मतलब नहीं है ये. दिस इज एन इटर्नल प्रोसेस. इसके बारे में श्रीमद् भागवतम में विस्तार से चर्चा किया गया है और 8वें अध्याय के अंदर भगवद गीता के अंदर भी इसके बारे में थोड़ी चर्चा होगी करके. सो एक्चुअली हमारा इस जैसे कि उदाहरण के रूप में अगर किसी कैदी को या कहते हैं व्हाट इज ए प्रिजनर और अ थीफ, कोई चोर है, उसको जेल भेजना किसका निर्णय होता है? गवर्नमेंट का निर्णय होता है या उस चोर का निर्णय होता है? द मोमेंट दैट थीफ स्टील्स, उसने ऑलरेडी अपना भविष्य डिसाइड कर लिया है ना. अब उसने चोरी करी, उसको दंड तो मिलेगा ही ना. गवर्नमेंट फैसिलिटेट्स, but the moment he steals, he has created his destiny to go into the prison house. Yes or no? Similarly, the moment the living entity becomes envious of the Lord, that moment the living entity is sent to this world to fulfill his desire to become the supreme controller. All right? And when Jagatapji came to this material world, that one question you should definitely ask when you meet Supreme Lord, because he only keeps records of Jagatapji's history. It is beyond me or anyone else to tell you what was your history. Okay.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. The next question is from YouTube. So Hariji is asking, can astrology offer relief from karmic reaction?
Oh, very nice question. So astrology or certain karmic rituals, not exactly astrology, but certain kind of karmic rituals, worship, sacrifices and offerings which are done, they can't delay your karmic reaction, but they cannot negate it. They cannot nullify it. I hope I'm making sense. I hope you're able to understand. Which means what you were supposed to get now, that reaction may get delayed by some time, but you will definitely get it. Now, if it is a bad reaction, that bad reaction, you'll get it after some time, but with a compound interest. So therefore, at the end of the day, to delay any reaction because of using this artificial means, temporary means, is not the best practice. Just like for Draupadi, in a previous life, she was blessed by Bhagwan Shiva, Lord Shiva, to have 5 husbands because she wanted that. She had put a desire like that. And Draupadi, in a previous life, whatever her name was, she said, no, I'm a daughter of a Brahman. How can I marry to 5 men? Shivji said, well, I cannot cancel it. You have to have it. Can you postpone it? Shivji said, yes, I can postpone. Even Lord Shiva could not nullify. He said, I can postpone my blessing. And therefore, Draupadi got it into her next life as Draupadi, wherein she got married to 5 husbands. Hare Krishna. So if you want to nullify, don't delay it, nullify it. And the process of that nullification is chanting of the holy names of the Lord, taking shelter of the Supreme Lord. Sarva dharman parityaja mamekam sharanam raja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshami masacha. Aham tvam, aham means I, tvam means yours. Sarva papebhyo, all the sinful reactions. Mokshami masacha, I would liberate it. I'll set you free. And that is what Lord Shri Krishna says. No one else gives you promise like this. So pick your choice, what you want to do now. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Sachinji, please unmute yourself and ask your question, please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yeah, thank you.
These are 2 questions which have come up to me when we have been discussing this chapter. So with your permission, I would like to raise them, though they may feel little silly. First question, Prabhuji, is let's take an example which you gave in the lecture today about the robber who desires and then he does the robbery, or a thief. Now the desire here by that particular person would have been that he wants Lakshmi, that is money. So why is it that the material nature has created instances that he has to do the robbery, while for another soul who also desires money, the material nature has created an instance that he comes in the family of Ford? So why that material nature has created these two different mechanisms to fulfill the desire sanctioned by Paramatma?
I would say this is a case of overthinking. It's a case of unnecessary dissection of simple issue. You should go and ask a thief. Even thief likes to rob. There is a different pleasure which comes in stealing. It's not only about making money. Of course, making money is a fundamental desire, but they make their plans how to make money. It is their plan ultimately that I would like to make money by stealing, not by working hard. You getting my point? See, if it's a question of making money, that the thief can also go and become an engineer job, join an IT job, isn't it? He can have a desire to join a university, but no, he wants to find an easy way out. It is his desire to make money by stealing because he thinks that's a quick way of making money. So material nature is not doing that. Material nature is creating a situation wherein there is a karma of somebody to undergo a financial loss. And there is a desire has to be fulfilled where this person is about to bring financial loss to someone. So material nature brings these two together. One who is supposed to bring financial loss and one who is supposed to undergo financial loss. These two people are brought together, and like this, both the things get fulfilled. Through the thief, through the robber, another person gets his reaction of undergoing financial loss. And through this person, and the desire of this person to rob gets fulfilled. But it is not he got a desire fulfilled, he's not accountable for it. He is punishable according to the law of karma. He will have to suffer. Ultimately, it is our choice to do or not to do. That choice is not taken away from us. For example, all of you attending the program today, it's your choice, isn't it? At any point of time, you can sign out. Or you can decide to continue. Ultimately, it is your choice. But somewhere, somehow, you all had a desire. Therefore, this whole facility is created for all of us to come together and study Bhagavad Gita. Somewhere, somehow, you might have thought, good, if all this time can be utilized in studying our Vedic text. Somewhere, some desire had to be there. Therefore, you showed interest. See, this is online program. I don't know most of you. I don't even have seen most of you. And probably most of us would not have met me or heard me before ever. Before this series or previous series. So how can two unknown people coming together and having a relationship of teacher and student? This cannot be a chance. It all has to be where some desire has to be there. All of you had some desire, and that, here I am trying to teach Vedic science, and here there are students who want to study Vedic science, and that's how the material nature creates an opportunity through the means of Facebook, WhatsApp, and whatnot, where the announcement happened. And you got to know of it. All right, Sachinji.
Prabhuji, my second question, with your permission, especially this comes up in the hostel program, used to come in the hostel program as well. As medical students, they have to do dissection of the dead bodies while learning anatomy. Do they get karmic reaction?
Yes. Therefore, for a working man, he should definitely contribute his hard-earned earning in the service of the Lord, or face the consequences.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Because it's something which maybe they have not desired, but somehow the material nature has made them do this dissection of the bodies.
Oh, no. It is not like that. Not like that.
That is the duty of teacher, na?
See, you may feel or think like that maybe the person had not thought of it, but at least he wanted to make money through the profession of medicine. That was his choice or her choice, isn't it? Now, within that profession, whatever is given has to be given. And that becomes an austerity for that individual to undergo. Ultimately, to choose that profession was his or her choice. Like I give an example, a IT programmer, a computer engineer doing a programming, he creates a code, but unfortunately that code gets utilized to run a machine that is used in the slaughterhouse to kill animals. Now the programmer, the person will get a reaction for it, knowingly or unknowingly. So therefore, we have to always try to perform karma yoga. We should always try to utilize our, results, some portion of the results in the service of the Lord. That's the means of it, of getting delivered or liberated from the reactions. All right, Sachinji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Your teacher.
Prabhuji, I'd just like to read a feedback from Shubham ji. He says, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I'd just like to thank you for this wonderful journey. Just can't tell how this session is helping me through overcoming the biggest loss I had just a few days back due to COVID-19. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Shubham ji, for your feedback.
We all pray to the Lord may give you strength and courage to deal with the crisis that you had to undergo because of the external situations.
The next question is from Pooja ji. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much for your wonderful session. I have a doubt if the desire of the soul, if not sanctioned by the Supreme Lord, and that Jiva is not understanding that Lord is not giving sanction, but the Jiva tries that desire again and again and so attached to it, what will be the solution to it?
No, he continues to perform actions for it and continue building up his karmic account balance, as and when his karmic account balance is enough for the desire to be fulfilled, then a desire gets fulfilled. For example, you might have seen, for example, let's take the case of Sachin Tendulkar. Of course, he must have worked hard to become Sachin Tendulkar, but there was a lot of destiny to play factor in the case of Sachin Tendulkar, where Sachin became the world's best batsman for such a long time. Not every 17-year-old boy in India gets to play for international team, isn't it? But he got an opportunity. There could be other players who might have worked very hard, more harder than Sachin Tendulkar would have practiced in his life. But Sachin got that opportunity. Probably he was carrying the desire from his previous life. And of course, that name, fame, which he got as being a cricketer was due to him because of his some pious actions in his previous life. So point is, your desires are not getting fulfilled. Ultimately, fulfill or not fulfill is all based on the sanction, and that sanction comes from your the karmic bank balance. So as a person continues trying to fulfill that desire, continue persisting, which means he's creating more and more karmic bank balance. And once the karmic bank balance is there to fulfill the desire, finally the situation happens. But there's no guarantee that may happen in this lifetime or not, because we don't have any way to measure it. What is my karmic bank balance right now? That's the reason people go and worship. They go to temple and offer puja to create their karmic bank balance, isn't it? To create their pious credit. They'll go and offer, do some puja for Ganeshi, take some fruits and flowers to offer Ganeshi, or offer milk to Lord Shivji on Friday, then take some peda on Thursday for Durga, then take some other mithai on Tuesday for Hanumanji. Like that, some people offer some different things 7 days a week so that their pious bank balance credit can increase. Hare Krishna. So it's almost 8:29. Once in a while, it's a good practice just to interact with the audience. If audience is fine, can they all just switch on the camera? Just at least would like to see who all I'm speaking to all this while. At least those who are on Zoom. And we have some space on Zoom. So if we want to bring in our YouTube audience on the Zoom, so, we have, so get to know who all are there. Okay, happy to see some of our Insights previous course participants are also here. Like that. So tomorrow is Thursday. Tomorrow we're discussing the 6th chapter, which will cover complete the first section of Bhagavad Gita. And day after tomorrow is Friday, the day of Akshaya Tritiya. So on Friday, we'll not have a program. So every 6 sessions, the 7th day will give a break. so that you can just chill out, and in case if you have to revise any of the topics that we have covered, you can always cover it up. You can also solve the quizzes, so you'll have a day off, and Saturday onwards will begin again until next Thursday. Like this, every week we'll have 6 sessions. So in the next 2 weeks we'll complete the remaining chapters of Bhagavad Gita. So Mother Medhavni, back to you. If there are any more questions, or we pause for today.
Yeah, there is a question from Vivek G, but I'm not sure if he's there. He wanted to ask that question, but I can't see him now. Okay, so this question, this question is from Leela G. Thanks for such a good session. In these crises, so many good devotees are affected and also lost their lives. Is this karmic reaction, Prabhuji?
Well, devotees are not under the karmic influence in general, and it's very difficult for us to commit who is under karmic influence or not, because it's a subject matter entirely governed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and it's a private affair between the Lord and his devotee. Because how one surrenders unto the Lord, it only Lord knows, not any one of us. So how do we see the devotees undergoing crisis? Let it put this way, the question precisely, for which we can give some understanding. So how does devotee undergo crisis, wherein Lord Shri Krishna promises in Bhagavad Gita to always protect his devotee? In 2nd chapter, he says, Neha vikramanashasti pratyevayo na vidyate swalpamasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Even one practice or renders devotional service, even for a fraction of time, that devotional service could save him from the greatest danger. So how does Lord protects? There are many ways Lord protects. Now, the material body, generally our understanding of protection is more limited to the things that we perceive and see, which means the body. You have to understand whatever has taken birth has to die. Nobody can be eternal or can have an eternal form or material body. So the body undergoes 6 changes: the birth, growth, maintenance, byproducts, dwindle, and death. Whoever has taken a birth has to die. Some may die at the age of 40, some may die at the age of 100, but ultimately everyone has to die. And how they leave their body, it may differ individual to individual. So what is the question of protection here then? Protection is of the consciousness of that person, of that devotee. Protection of the spiritual credits that that person has earned. Therefore, Krishna says, whatever spiritual credits you have earned in this life, in the next life, you continue your journey from that spiritual credit. If you got a double PhD in this life, you'll have to, in the next life, still start from a nursery class. You cannot make a halla gulla. Don't you know, last life, I was your teacher. Today, you're my teacher in nursery class. So that doesn't happen. You got a point? But Lord Krishna promises that whatever spiritual credits have been earned by you, that spiritual credits will follow from the next life, and your consciousness is protected. In other words, such a person would only make progress, or in some cases they may go back to Godhead, or even if not, such a person would have a very great opportunity in the next life to continue wherever he left in this lifetime. And that's how the Supreme Personality Godhead protects. Frankly speaking, he's more worried about our well-being than we are actually. Today's men and women are least bothered about their well-being. Everyone is on the brink of committing a suicide by their behaviors, actions, if not their style of thinking. So detrimental, so negative, so obnoxious the thinking of everyone has become. Everyone's heart is filled with hatred and envy for others. It is literally a suicide, wherein we have such a wonderful opportunity to live a life, to give love, to share love, and to receive love. It all has been replaced by hatred and animosity. So we are totally lost in this world, but Lord is so kind and merciful that he appears again and again in this world to reawaken us from the sleeping state, sends his pure devotees to enlighten us, and gives us the Vedic scriptures like Bhagavad Gita that can guide us from the forest of material existence back to Godhead. Yet, many of us do not want to hear, do not want to take advantage, and continue destroying our lives. So Lord always protects the devotees. How? That Krishna knows, and a devotee has a full faith on the Lord, because Krishna says so in Bhagavad Gita. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. There are just 2 more questions. With your permission, can we take those 2?
All right.
Thank Thank you, Prabhuji. So the question is from Akshay Ji. How much percentage of life is in our hands and how much percentage is in the hands of Prarabdha or destiny?
Can you say that again?
How much percentage of our life is in our hands and how much percentage is in the hands of Prarabdha or destiny?
See, Prarabdha or destiny are the things which are about to fructify. They only can create a situation and an environment around you. As an individual, we have been given the free will to choose. In one way, we have the almost the complete control on our life if we choose to, because the decision has to be made by an individual. We make a decision. Circumstances, we have no control, which have been created by our karmic reaction. But how we react to a situation is what our free will. And that free will, to exercise that free will, we need to be in mode of goodness. A person in lower modes of consciousness cannot exercise his free will. Just for an animal, animals act on a platform of instinct. What they feel like, they do it. Similarly, people who are in Rajoguna and Tamoguna, they act on the basis of what they like and not like. However, on the platform of goodness, there is a power of discrimination where a person can think before reacting. So we need to cultivate goodness first. And once we get situated on a platform of goodness, then we can take control of life in our hands. Otherwise, our life is in a mechanical mode or auto mode where we keep on becoming victim to the situation that happens around us. So to take a control of life is also in our hands. So that choice is given to us through the means of association of devotees, through the means of wisdom literatures. So that choice we have to exercise. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Ajay Ji is asking, how do we understand the law of attraction with respect to karmic law?
Hare Krishna. Let him ask this question. Go
This
ahead.
on YouTube.
No, he's here on the Zoom.
Oh, okay.
He is a very good friend of mine. So before I answer the question, he has to explain us what is law of attraction. He has to enlighten us. What is the law of attraction? Please go ahead.
Very well. Dandavat Pranam Prabhuji.
That was good to see you.
Wonderful listening to you as always. And I have been interacting with you more like a friend. And with these sessions, I see you very differently. So thank you so much for enlightening us and making us your consciousness. Okay, I essentially wanted to understand this. Many of us have read the book Secret and heard of it. There are movies on it. So many of them are talking of law of attraction. You desire, you think about the situation, you think what you want, and the cosmic energy will ensure that you get that or it's fulfilled by creating some situations, by getting few people in your life which will help you achieve that. So is it also like, how do you relate that to karmic reaction? Hasn't law of attraction says you be affirmative, you just think about it and it will happen.
Correct. See, the book, The Secret, which you're talking about, which primarily talks about this principle law of attraction. When you think about something, that's what you attract in your life. That is the premises of the book or the philosophy that is being discussed. It is an atheistic perspective of the law of karma, or the atheistic perspective of what we just discussed. Just like the evolution theory put forward by Darwin was an atheistic perspective of the evolution which is described in scriptures. Now, what is the evolution described in scriptures? Evolution happens, scriptures also acknowledge, but evolution happens at the level of consciousness where a living entity moves from one species to another. It is a soul that transmigrates. However, Darwin brought it out on the material platform where he said the body transforms. And he took out the concept of God from the picture by saying that it all happens by itself during the constant supply of these, the objects which leads to the transformation in chemicals. Similarly is the theory of this law of attraction where, yes, what we desire is how the things gets unfolded in our life, but actually who sanctions the desire? That is, again, is not been discussed. So the idea brought over there is something which is described in Vedic literature, that whatever we do in our life, it originates with desire. The root is a desire, but there is a sanctioning authority for that. And that sanctioning authority is impartial, samoham sarva bhuteshu, is not biased. And that sanctioning authority sanctions on the basis of our karmic bank balance or karmic account. And then the situation gets created around us where our desires are fulfilled. So in this case of also law of attraction, where you keep thinking, keep reminding yourself, she talks about how you should make a note and put it onto your door, put it onto your car, everywhere, surround by yourself, surround your thought, mind entirely with what you want to fulfill. In other words, she's talking about keep working hard for it, keep working hard for it, keep working hard for it, which means you're creating a karmic balance for it. If in case the karmic balance is in the positive direction where the Lord can fulfill or sanction, then it gets sanctioned. But if not, it never gets sanctioned. The point is, if that theory has to be correct, everyone today is desiring COVID to end. Nobody need to take vaccination. Hi, Anna. Yes or no?
Yes.
But now the government is and the medical professionals talking about wave 3. So according to her theory, it is us desiring for wave 3. Law of attraction must work according to her, isn't it? So it just doesn't make sense. You see that? Now you understand this whole COVID situation from the perspective of Bhagavad Gita. Why it is happening? Law of karma. Karma acts on an individual level. Karma also acts at community level or the society level. Srila Prabhupada writes, when there is a large-scale slaughter of animals, there is illicit sex, there is alcohol drinking, and all those breaking of regulatory principles, then the punishment is given in the form of a famine, natural disaster, pandemic, wars, and whatnot. Large population of the world today is engrossed in breaking the rules and regulations, living a sinful life. So if there was no third world war today, the loss of life had to happen on a large scale. A pandemic occurred. Who's responsible for it? Ultimately, our actions. Everything is put into the picture, which means, according to Bhagavad Gita, we become responsible. I need to take a responsibility of life, and I need to change my behavior towards the society and towards the world. I cannot live an irresponsible life saying that nobody exists. I can do whatever I want. Because we had that attitude, that's the reason we are dying today. If we would have understood the nature of the world doesn't function on its own, there is somebody governing it, we need to follow the rules and the codes of it, probably we wouldn't have this pandemic. Or the hurricane Rita or whatever had happened in 2005, or the tsunami that had happened in 2011 in Japan and whatnot. Those would not have happened if we live properly. Law of attraction kind of thing just makes you irresponsible once again. You keep desiring, although you have a qualification or not. And just because you're desiring, you will get it fulfilled. Just doesn't make sense. There's so many questions can be asked to counter prove it that way. All right.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. So I guess it's almost 8:45 now. Is a little late. We should pause it. Is that okay?
Okay, Prabhuji. So as you were answering, we have 3 more questions. So yeah, maybe we'll take it in some of the future sessions when we have the time.
Tomorrow. We can take that tomorrow when we meet tomorrow. All right.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna. So thank you so much, Prabhuji, for the very wonderful session today, as always. And we got many of our questions answered. So we have 3 more questions, which we'll take it up tomorrow. A lot of queries that participants are not able to access the quiz. So please write to your group admin individually, and the group admin would be able to guide you on a step-by-step basis how to access the quiz. And looking forward to all of you joining in tomorrow for the 6th topic of the series based on the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And the quiz on chapter 1 is still open, so you could liaise with your respective group admins and still attempt the quiz. So that's it from the announcements perspective. Thank you very much. Please do contemplate on what we've discussed today on the peace formula. Take good care of yourself.